Não caiu? Welcome everyone. Sorry for all this inconvenience with internet, and those who have made it so far, thank you for your patience. Let's make some silence first. Abstract. Deem everything unimportant. Everything that takes you from silence, stillness, as unimportant. No point in evaluating, judging thoughts by its importance, mistaking your voice with the voice of the thoughts. That is there only to disturb silence, to keep you tied up to that self-perception, that good old self-perception. Abstract. Get out from whatever comes. As you continue to abstract, those periods untouched increase. Remain there. Okay, so for those who don't know, we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. It is easier. You can send your questions directly to me, and it gives you privacy because nobody knows who is asking the questions. So in that way, real questions can come. So one of the biggest difficulties for the majorities of seekers, it is to separate themselves from the story of the character. And the story of the character, we can compare it more or less a little bit. I will not dive too much into the questions of karma for different reasons. It is an extent subject, and it differs from level to level of perception. It changes, so it's not absolute. But the story of the character, it's like an arrow that has been fired. As the arrow is fired, individual perception begins, whatever that means. And the arrow is going. And as you recognize yourself there and get attached to that new structure, that physical structure, whatever that means, you start to get attached, identifying with desires and everything that is there, that is part of the arrow that is flying. And you have this idea that you can drive this arrow, and you suffer in expectations about what is going to come and all these things. But these things, they are from the arrow, not from you. All the time that you have, you can dedicate it, that is its purpose, on transcending the arrow. Because the arrow was shot, it doesn't matter who shot the arrow, where is it going for. It doesn't matter, only transcending the arrow. And wherever you go, there's this tendency of trying to realize, trying to experience and materialize all the same longings that are with you or that you have embraced over time. Either in a worldly environment, a spiritual environment, there's this difficulty in letting go of the individual story, of the individual needs. So circumstances change, but this tendency continues, persists, transforms, adapts, and it is always sucking your attention onto it. So the longing for awakening may be there, may be true, and you may have already made difficult decisions in your life that change drastically the circumstances, the environment, and you find yourself in the same, more or less in the same place after a while, involved in the same investments, looking for the same responses from the world. Because it is very difficult to transcend this character, to let go of this character's investments. But this is an absolute need. You see, when you start to understand the nature of the world, by wisdom, this passion comes. The lack of passion, the lack of will to invest in the world. Those who come in touch with this wisdom by force of circumstances. They become depressed, they lack the passion to invest, and it is a big drama for the character. But when it is through wisdom, and that means that you and this character, there's a distance coming, increasing. So this, by reasoning, this passion follows. But as you're trying to gain this distance from this character, the I, the identity, from the character, the body-mind complex. In the beginning it seems that they are the same, but as you continue your spiritual work and intensify it, you will see with time that there starts to be a difference, a distance and a difference from this body-mind complex and the identity. So to increase this distance, it is very important because this allows for this other part of staying at the source. What is staying at the source of the I? In this case, as distance has been gained, so the attention that moves from the character onwards turns on to itself and stays there, and the character becomes unimportant. But for this to be possible, you have to come out from the character's story, from the character's needs, to come out of it. And the majority of you, if you watch closely, honestly, you will see that you're still going with the arrow. If the arrow is taking you through spiritual places or worldly places, you're following the arrow, struggling to put power onto the arrow, to maintain the flight of the arrow, direct it somewhere else, not realizing that the arrow has a life of its own. You're fighting for that which doesn't need any help from your part, any participation. It is going where it has to go. And wherever it goes through, in whatever circumstances is going through, you're trying to get the same things out of it, out of those circumstances. The same dreams that you had in a previous circumstance, you'll have in the next one. The same. From the more immediate needs, recognition, acceptance, love, self-importance, all of this, and then to the next dreams, live happily ever after, and the princess and the prince and all of these things, depending on which phase of your life. Even that is not absolute because, well, so coming out from this, it is a big need, an absolute must. And this is difficult, and it needs full attention. Because, you see, all the time that you are distracted, all that amount of time that you are distracted from your spiritual work, from your sadhana, more than that, from the attention of the spiritual work, of the practice, of staying here, of observing. So, and these are different words for different levels of practice, but it doesn't matter. As you get distracted, as time is flying, that identification is increasing. The distance is reducing or strengthening their closeness, making stronger this bond of I and the body-mind complex. As you are focusing on your spiritual practice, on maintaining attention in the I or at the I source, depending on whatever practice you're doing, this is separating, increasing the separation, dissolving the ties that bond them together. So even if you have left, supposedly, the outward mundane world, and you're living in the ashram, and you're following guidance or trying to follow guidance, you will deal with these things in the same way, more or less. Less distraction, but these forces will still be at play, possibly even stronger because you're trying to pay attention. And each moment of distraction is big and costs a lot. Because, as they say, time flies. And no time is wasted. Because or this bond is strengthening or it is weakening. As you are paying attention, as you are concentrating here, because if you're just doing whatever is being told but you're not there, you're not focused, your intention is not present, then you're just trying to take satisfying the same needs from the body-mind complex through a new set of circumstances. And then, eventually, what will happen? Frustration will follow. Because if you're in those circumstances, to bring water to quench the thirst of the truth seeker, but you're just using that spoon to feed the seeker of well-being, then eventually frustration will rise. So eventually, the big story, the circumstances of life, they are not the thing that really hold this closeness of the body-mind complex and identity. It is in details, the little details of every moment that arises. Because the details are closer. So imagine, look at your time, the time that you have available, and that means the time that you have. How do you say this? The time that you have available during which you are conscious, whatever that means. How is it used? What part of it is used consciously, focused, and how much part does it flies? How long do you get entertained, distracted? Then you'll have an idea. So it doesn't matter in which circumstances you are, in a sense, in this context. This impulse of feeding the character's story, continues, superimposes itself, tries to constantly assert itself on whatever appears to be happening. And getting out from this as fast as you can, it is very important. So in a way, it is simple for you to make an evaluation of how time is being used, of what is really important. And you observe your mental space, what you call your mental space. And what disturbs peace more often? Is it the lack of fruits of your spiritual work? Or is it something that someone told you, something that you were expecting, all these things from the character, these little things? How long does these little details of life, of relations with others, with the environment, how much is this disturbing comparing to the fruits of the spiritual work, the lack of fruits or the expectancy of bigger fruits? How intense is your longing for that compared to the rest? How many times you get bothered by the lack of fruits or little fruits, or disappointed that you cannot maintain longer and longer your practices, that you are missing your practices? How long is this disturbing compared to the rest, to what someone said, to what you were expecting from a situation? And then you'll see. So establishing yourself in a spiritual environment is good. And that means to establish circumstances that are better for, but that's not, it doesn't solve anything. So let's put some different words. Making life simpler so that you are not forced to distract more and more with those circumstances helps, but finally you'll have to sit more before all of that. Let's say this. And deal with these structures at the source of them. When things are arising from that center. And letting the arrow go. The arrow is going. Instead of I moving with the arrow is going, the I stays. Self-deception is a big obstacle, and trust me, it is there. So evaluating if self-deception is there or not is a waste of time. It's more useful to find where self-deception is and why there is self-deception. What needs are still there, haunting, twisting your spiritual practices, twisting the use of your time. And if you really want to find it, you will find it. And when there's no more excuses, then you will see that how hard it is to hold your grounds. But this is what really brings this passion. The vision of worldly mechanics, because you will see them at the source. As they are taking birth, you are seeing them. And you will see that life, that was the circumstances, all of that was just because of simple little things that you've believed in. And so much confusion, so much investment. Doesn't matter if life is too exciting or too boring. Doesn't matter. You see, the character feeds, survives on both. If it can prosper, it will prosper with no limits until it explodes. But if it has to survive with very little, he will survive with very little. So this actually is quite important. It may not seem so, but it is fundamental. The time that you spend distracted is the time that you are investing in the character's needs. The time that you spend focus on your spiritual practice. And spiritual practice, it doesn't matter what it is, which one is it, but it is 24/7. And eventually, if you are intense with your practices, you will see that it is really 24/7. And time that is not being used, time where there's no focus, it is time that is being used to feed the world of the character, its importance and its maintenance, and guaranteeing its future. Okay, so that's all for today. Next satsang will be Wednesday, 9 o'clock UTC -3. So in the last satsangs, we didn't experience difficulties with internet, but today we had it again strongly. So we have different means. There's the YouTube channel and there's the Instagram channel. And as Instagram is also through mobile connection, but I don't know, it demands very little. So it usually gives no problem. 99.9% of times, no problem here. So if you're having difficulties and internet is falling down, you can follow it through Instagram. Limitation is 1 hour, sometimes satsang extends, but when it does, Instagram disconnects and I just reconnect it again. So, just that inconvenience. And to really be able to observe, to have this separation from the I and the body-mind complex, that's not really for the majority. And even for those who have this vision, understand if the focus is not intensely there, what tends to happen is the character absorbs this as new circumstances, redirects his needs towards this, and this becomes a part of life also. A part which is maintained here, just connected to the other parts that you are wherever. So intensity has to be there, because self-deception is quite adaptable and it adapts to anything almost. So if you have questions about this, you can send. I will answer next satsang or whenever you send them. Okay, till then, reflect about these words if you deem them important, and perhaps you'll be surprised. Okay, so till Wednesday, continue the work. Much.